When we think of gymnastics, traditionally we think of teenagers tumbling towards Olympic gold. But in college, these women's dreams have been tempered by time, and most of them have found a new joy in the pursuit of team triumphs. We're here at the Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa on the campus of the University of Alabama and the site of NCAA women's gymnastics. Today, 3 of America's top teams meet in a classic confrontation for conference bragging rights and national rankings. Hi everybody, I'm John Neighbor. This may not be a full house, but it certainly is a noisy one because there's a real sense of anticipation of outstanding competition in the air. To help us interpret what we see on the floor, Olympic captain and medalist Kathy Johnson. Kathy, there really is a rivalry going on.
There certainly is, and even though this is a regular season tie-meet, there's a lot here to make it interesting to watch. We have last year's Southeastern Conference champion and University of Florida, and most impressively, we have the last 3 years national champion. Alabama won it in 1988, Georgia won it in 1987, then came back last year and recaptured the title. So even if these teams weren't in the same conference, they would be rivals. But since they are, it makes this rivalry even more intense.
And indeed, there's no more intense contest than what goes on in the SEC conference. Let's take a look at how our 3 teams fared in the most recent poll. You see, we have a tie at the top of the list, and Florida in 4th place. They're all in the thick of it for bragging rights. Now, of course, the picture can be brought larger than this. If we look at it from a national point of view, the National Coaches Poll shows that Alabama and Georgia are in the top 4. Florida's still in the top 10, and they are trying to move up in time for the national championships. And, Kathy, what's the important thing we can learn from this contest?
Well, this competition is important to all 3 of these teams trying to qualify for the Nationals in April. Any team vying for a national title must try and score consistently high throughout the regular season to achieve the highest possible national team ranking. And hopefully they try and get in those final 6 spots so they can compete in the final round at the Nationals where the scores tend to be a little bit higher.
Now, I'm personally accustomed to all the decorum that you see at Olympic gymnastics competition. It's pretty noisy out here. There's got to be the collegiate atmosphere, and of course, Alabama with the hometown advantage. What kind of an advantage is it?
This is a much different crowd than you would see at an Olympic Games or at a national event. The crowds are very team-oriented. They're behind their schools all the way. Therefore, it's a lot louder, a lot noisier, very distracting for the gymnasts. But most of these gymnasts are used to it. They know what to expect. They get in there, they try and block it out, and do the best job they can.
Now, we are watching for team championship, but also there's the individual all-around events that we're looking forward to seeing, and each team has their own standouts to look for.
They certainly do. Alabama has a standout freshman, Dee Dee Foster. She will anchor 3 of the 4 events, which is an unusual position for a freshman. She was a top junior and senior elite athlete, but I think her success is yet to come in the collegiate field. And Georgia, they have returning senior and defending national all-around champion, Corinne Wright. She will join Andrea Thomas, also a senior, in a leadership role. They have 6 new freshmen on the Georgia team. Florida is having trouble with injuries. They lost 2 to graduation last year, 3 to injury this year. They're just trying to qualify for nationals.
The individuals most responsible for the successful programs here, perhaps the most accomplished coach on the floor, Ernestine Weaver from Florida, Olympic athlete and coach. But the rivalry demonstrated by Georgia and Alabama is most clearly reflected in the intensity of the 2 coaches. Sarah Patterson from Alabama and Susanna Yocklin from Georgia reflect the intensity of their athletes on the floor. We'll be back with the start of the first rotation right after this. Welcome back to NCAA gymnastics competition, but before we begin the action, Kathy, perhaps you could explain how the scoring is conducted.
Well, the judges are using competition 1B rules here, which means the difficulty requirements to achieve the full 3.0 for value parts are as follows. 3 A's, which are skills of easier difficulty, 3 B's, which is medium difficulty, and 2 C's, skills of higher difficulty. The judges first determine the starting value score for each routine. If all the difficulty requirements and special requirements for that event are met, the routine is worth a 9.6. If the routine has a move of D value, the most difficult skill value, and or moves of original value, they can receive up to 4/10 of a point bonus point.
Kim Masters from Alabama taking her first run at the vault.
She's performing a handspring front. Nice ball. Really done quite well. She had good height, good distance from the horse, and just a small hop on the landing.
Look how eager she is to run back and get set for her second attempt. She's 5 feet 2 inches tall out of Blue Springs, Ohio.
As you can see, she gets good repulsion, and this is the one thing she wants to try and do on the next vault, is stick that landing. This vault is scored from a 9.9, so any technical deductions will start from the 9.9.
So Kim Masters getting ready now for her second attempt. Rough break. Kim Masters. That, of course, doesn't matter because she got a good score on the first vault.
Yes, in the vault competition, at least until event finals, you can count the best of the two vaults, and you can perform the same vault twice. In final competition, you have to do a different vault, and both vaults count.
And at the other end of the floor, Pam Titus from Florida, getting ready for her performance on the uneven parallel bars.
Pam is a two-time All-American, and in fact, on this event, and I spoke to her coach earlier, they were working on a more difficult routine earlier in the season, and for consistency's sake, they went back to the old routine. It's a nice vault over the high bar with a half twist. Pam is a tall gymnast, and she really benefits from the new rules, allowing the gymnast to put the bars a lot further out. Giant swing, good tuck double flyaway, nice and high. As you can see, she was level with the high bar as she finished the second rotation. Very important in the judges' eyes.
Pam Titus, a real leader for the Florida Gators. Let's take a look at that routine one more time.
Pam doesn't have the big release moves that you're going to see later in the competition, but that was a nice move. The straddle vault with a half turn over the high bar. She actually moved quite well. Good start for her in this competition.
On the uneven bars, Pam Titus scores a 9.45. Let's go now to Georgia over at the beam. Corrine Wright, one of their top contenders for the all-around, getting ready to do her balance beam routine.
And Georgia's doing quite well starting on balance beam. Sometimes that can be to your disadvantage. But boy, if you hit it, puts a lot of pressure on the teams coming up next.
Corrine at 4 feet 10 inches tall is the shortest of the Lady Dogs. She's got a very happy-go-lucky attitude.
She might be the shortest, but she's probably the most powerful gymnast here. A lot of strength, a lot of power in those legs.
This is probably good to get the balance beam out of the way for her.
I think most gymnasts, before they have to compete first on balance beam, they wish they didn't. But once it's over with, it's a good thing to have behind you. Here's your most difficult pass in the routine. That handspring, layout, step out, just a slight check in the balance. All those will just be minor deductions. She gives away just a little bit in form. Needs to see a straighter body line, more extension in the movement.
He was speaking over before the competition, and she's very confident, very poised young lady, a senior, graduating this year.
She's an excellent competitor. She can withstand so much pressure. She won the Nationals in the individual all-around last year. Excellent dismount, double twist. One of the more difficult dismounts being done in collegiate gymnastics. Another good routine for Georgia.
And her team lets her know they're very thrilled with that. In fact, there's 3 athletes still to come on the beam, so she raises the score at this point. That'll help the Georgia Dogs.
It was on this event that Georgia really made their mark, and it enabled them to win nationals. As you can see, there's really no room for error on the balance beam. And the dismount, she does a double twist. As I said, one of the more difficult dismounts done. She does it from a cartwheel. A little bit sloppy in the air, but not bad. And, of course, the step. But these are minor deductions.
Corrine Wright's performance on beam worth 9.55 points from the judges. Now we're going to go to Dee Dee Foster, her team on the vault.
And we just quickly joined Dee Dee Foster on the vault. There was a handspring front vault. It scored from a 9.9. And I believe for her second vault, she's going to try and do a pike front somersault. She's never competed that before. And, of course, that will raise the value to a 10.0.
Dee Dee Foster going last in the rotation for Bama on the vault. A lot of pressure on a freshman, but she seems to be holding up to it.
Most people think it's a lot of pressure. Dee Dee has competed internationally. She competed for the United States both at the junior level and the senior level and competed quite well. She can handle this kind of pressure.
Keen concentration in those eyes.
She's got the look as if she's doing something for the first time. This is a beautiful vault when it's done well. There's a lot of speed, a lot of power. I saw the problem coming onto the horse. The pre-flight is what went wrong. She was a little too far forward over the horse, and she couldn't get that block to get her into her rotation.
Coming up, more gymnastics from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Welcome back to the Coleman Coliseum on the campus of University of Alabama for more gymnastics. Over on the uneven bars, the final performer for Florida, Christina McDonald, Olympic athlete herself.
She was the team captain for the 1988 Canadian Olympic team. And I spoke with her coach earlier. She's really hoping that she's going to make a comeback. She had to sit out all last year with a knee injury, and she's hoping she'll be ready for the SEC championship. Nice work. It was a reverse hex up on the high bar, straddle back to the low bar.
I'm always impressed how much that bar bends.
Two giant swings into a front with a half dismount. A lot of good difficulty in that routine. One thing the gymnasts are looking for here is ways to earn bonus points so that the routines are scored from a 10. As the new rules stand now, the routines are worth a 9.6 if they have their basic move, and that right there is a sign that she's going to get her bonus points. The big release move on the high bar, straddle back to the low bar, she'll have more than enough to score from a 10. Of course, these are minor little breaks that will be deducted from that 10.0.
9.60, the official score for Olympian Christina McDonald. Over on the balance beam, the University of Georgia has Jennifer Carbone preparing for her routine.
Thus far, they have a 9.2 by Sophia Royce, a 9.25 Missy DePaula, and a 9.55 from Corrine Wright. That is going to cost them. I was just going to say that if they could drop that 9.2, they could still maintain a 9.5 average, which wouldn't be too bad. It'd be pretty steady for them. But now they're going to end up having to count a break, a fall. Next handspring, lay out, step out, another balance break. Right into a tuck jump, one of the special requirements on balance beams. In these special requirements, they're looking to see them combine dance and acrobatic elements, or several dance elements in a row.
Jennifer's a freshman from Utica, New York.
Needs a little more extension in all her movements. A little bit tighter in the leg form. The last one, a one-arm back handspring into a full twist. And that was even a little bit shaky as well.
A little bit shaky perhaps because of the distraction of the fall early in the routine. Let's take a look once again as she mounts the bar.
This is one of the more difficult passes she does. A back handspring to a layout, step out. Again, a little loose in the leg form and the balance break at the end. She had minor deductions throughout the whole routine and, of course, the major fall at the very beginning.
So the judges rule on Jennifer Carbone an 8.9. That is the lowest score so far. The old Bulldogs will have to throw that one out. Georgia's best hope in the beam routine, Andrea Thomas, Olympic athlete, captain for the Canadian team. And they say she's got an interesting dismount.
I look forward to seeing this dismount. I've had it described to me. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like. As you said, Andrea was on the Olympic team in 1984, captain of that team. She is excellent on this event. She has nerves of steel, rarely misses this routine, and has been so consistent for the Georgia team. She has a very interesting mount. Excellent work on her hands. You'll see the balance and the flexibility right off the bat. Walk to the side.
She's going up on her fingertips.
A one-arm handstand. Beautiful work, and then pirouette. She's the only person I've ever seen do that, and she does it so well. She's probably one of the most consistent performers on this event that I've seen. Right there, she was fulfilling a special requirement on the balance beam. She did a switch leg leap right into an acrobatic move called a back handspring. Back handspring, layout, step out. You can see how sure she is in her movement. She moves very quickly. Another requirement, a full turn. Again, the judges are looking for moves of originality or the highest level of difficulty, which is a D element. If they have that D element and moves of originality, they can earn the bonus point.
Now, our coach asked us to look for something that's similar to the Shushanova in gymnastics. On the beam, though.
Double pirouette on her hands. Beautiful work. She's so sure in a handstand. There's the Shushanova. It's not a dismount. The Shushanova is done on floor exercise, and it's a straddle jump to a prone drop. And the dismount, a double twist. Good work on the beam. Georgia had a very consistent balance beam rotation. They only had one fall, and of course you can drop one score from the team score. This is definitely going to help Georgia's bid trying to win this competition. Look at this mount. It's so pretty. Right to a handstand. And here's the Shushanova on the bouncing. The straddle jump right to a prone drop. Not something I'd like to practice all the time.
Well, that'll certainly put them in a good position.
And she does a round-off double twist. Pretty good form in the air. A little crossing of the legs and just a slight hop.
Fantastic performance by Olympic athlete Andrea Thomas. 9.7 from the judges. There's a look at the scores after the first rotation. Alabama with 4.5 of a point advantage at this point. That's about 1/10 of a point per athlete per routine. We'll be back with the start of the second rotation when we return right after this. Welcome back. We've now completed 1/4 of the competition. The first rotation is now behind us. And Kathy, what stood out in your mind in this point?
Well, Florida had a few problems on the uneven bars, but Georgia and Alabama did exactly what they hoped to do. Georgia started on the balance beam and did a really solid performance there. And keep in mind, that's exactly why Georgia won the national championship, both in '87 and '89, because they were the only teams to hit beam. So I know that's in the back of their mind. Alabama started on their weakest event and took the lead. That's a statement in their strength this year.
Could you tell if the crowd's beginning to have an impact at this point?
It's having an impact on me. I can't believe that they're maintaining their concentration. But as I said earlier, they are used to this, and they just can't wait to get the other team in their home court.
Fourth up for Bama. On the bars, Gina Basile, a sophomore, 5 feet 3 inches tall from New Jersey.
And they are really on a roll here on the uneven bars. This is their best event. She's doing some excellent work. Nice pirouette work. Three-hip circle to handstand. Giant circle with a full pirouette on the top, right into another giant swing, and a pike double flyaway. Good difficulty in that routine. Each routine gets better and better in terms of difficulty. So the scores should build. That's exactly what you want to do to get the highest team score possible.
The Tide is on a roll just into the second rotation.
To straddle back to handstand. Really keeping it going for the Alabama team here.
Gina Basile, 9.75 on the uneven parallel bars. Over on the beam, Christina McDonald from Florida. The Olympic athlete now performing her skills here. On a strip 16 feet long and 4 inches wide.
Christine is trying to make the adjustment from international competition, Olympic competition, to collegiate. Beautiful pass.
Yeah, beautiful pass, right.
You notice the extension is straight how that beam is. Did another nice pass. Split leap right into an aerial cartwheel. Straddle jump. And a back handspring chest roll. Just some nice difficulty within the routine.
She had a painful knee injury last season. She seems to be recovered from it rather well.
Well, Ernestine feels that this is going to be their top all-arounder once she really gets everything together, and hopefully by the Southeastern Conference Championship. And an Arabian, oh, that's too bad. On a very, very simple dismount. In fact, that was the 1988 compulsory dismount in Seoul.
It looked like she changed her mind halfway through the dismount, whether to go for the hard one or to just do the easy dismount.
It's a simple matter of taking something for granted.
Just a big pass.
This was really nice. 2 back handsprings to a layout step out, and she is just right on the money. Now here's where she had the trouble. And of course it's a 0.5 of a point deduction. She does a cartwheel into an Arabian front, kicks out too soon, doesn't have enough rotation, and sits it down.
.15, the official score for Christina McDonald. Next up, Sherry Way from Bama, second to last for her school on this apparatus. And she's got some good scores helping her along.
Sherry is a former All-American on this event. She does nice, pretty work. You'll see straight lines in all her handstands, toes always pointed, legs always straight.
Now, she had a difficult, painful fall on this apparatus just recently.
It's on a skill that is very difficult to come back when you've made that kind of mistake. It's very similar to Greg Louganis in the Olympic Games when he hit his head on the diving board. To come back and try and repeat it, it's nerve-wracking, but she's managed it quite well. And the first skill up is where she had the problem before. She does a giant swing, a half turn, free hip. That was a cover-up, but nobody knows. Right into a reverse hat. That was the skill that she had the problem on. She did so well. As I pointed out early, her form is so good. Doesn't leave any room for deductions. And a front somersault dismount. Pretty big hop on the landing, but that's pretty much the only deduction that was there. Major deduction.
Immediately swamped and surrounded by fellow Crimson.
It's exciting to watch this team on the uneven bars because the coach is so excited when he gets new gymnasts on his team because they're still eager to learn new skills, even after they get to the college. Beautiful reverse hat. Excellent position from the bar. And impeccable form.
Sherry says she likes the SEC rivalry. It gets her juices going. Sherry Way gets a 9.75 on the bars. We'll be back with more Southeast Conference gymnastics competition when we return. You're looking at the beautiful campus of the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, where we're getting ready for more gymnastics competition in the Southeast Conference. Next up for the Lady Bulldogs, Heather Stepp in the floor exercise. She's a freshman, 5 feet 1 inch, out of Sterling Heights, Michigan.
And Heather opens with a very difficult pass, a full twisting double back. In fact, her coach said Heather is one of the most skilled tumblers they've ever had at the University of Georgia. Very few collegiate gymnasts use this pass.
Yet it's interesting, she's third in her team's rotation.
There's a certain strategy that many coaches use, and it varies. Sometimes you want to take one of your top kids, put them in the middle to try and pump up the later scores that may not be that high otherwise. You never know.
That's the sacrifice they're willing to make in school.
Great height. Whoa. Problem on the landing, and she stepped out of bounds, going out of bounds with a 1/10 of a point deduction. She was actually doing that much better in warm-up. Also, since she's a freshman, that's probably one of the reasons she's in the middle of the lineup. There's enough pressure on the freshmen as it is without putting him at the end of the lineup. She really does have excellent height on her tumbling. That middle tumbling run, the double back, was as high as many people do at the beginning of the routine. Full twisting back handspring. Difficulty at the beginning of the routine if she could clean it up. The dance needs to be cleaned up. The landings of the tumbling passes need to be cleaned up. So the dynamite floor routine.
Let's see where she stepped out on that first tumbling run.
What happened here is I believe she felt she was a little shorter on rotation than she actually was. The good first part of the somersault is the full twist, but she pulls it around a little bit too far, gets her hips beyond her feet, and has to step back. And of course, a tenth of a point for out of bounds. About 2/10 of a point for the stumble.
And the judges give her a 9.6, a 9.4, average just a 9.5, but you take the 10th point deduction for a 9.4 final score for Heather Stepp. Dee Foster now rounding out the rotation for Alabama on the bars. Very talented freshman, looking to be a force for years to come.
What's even more impressive, she actually took a full year off from gymnastics to finish high school, and she's coming back so strong from that year off. Beautiful reverse hat, catches in mid strip, and immediately drops to low bar.
She's got a snap to her movement.
This is what made her one of our top juniors at the elite program. And then another reverse hat. Excellent difficulty, particularly for it being at the end of a routine. High tuck double back.
That's remarkable, and the crowd is on their feet for Dee Foster. 5 feet 3 inches tall from Huntsville. She used to train with Sarah and David Patterson at the Bama Bounders as a youngster. This isn't even her best event. She's got a lot of good tricks still to show us in the rest of this competition.
Well, what makes Dee such a good gymnast is she doesn't really have a weak event. Look at the height over the bar. That is beautiful. It's exactly what the judges are looking for. They need to see the shoulders above the level of the high bar, and theirs are way above.
So Alabama looks to gain a lot of ground on the rest of the field in this uneven parallel bars. We're halfway through competition. 2 of the 4 apparatus completed. The Bama team gets ready to move on to the next apparatus. Coming up next, Tracy Wilson from Florida rounding out the rotation on the beam apparatus.
Tracy was a member of the World University Games team in Zagreb, Yugoslavia. Competed for Canada at the 1985 World Championship. Really pretty gymnast on this event. There's a lot of difficulty, a lot of originality. In fact, her coach really believes she could be a contender on this event at Nationals. Two back handspring to a layout, step out. Just a slight balance check. Hardly a deduction at all.
Looks like she started performing to the music on the floor.
She has a nice flowing routine, not stop and start as many of the routines are. As you can see, she just has tiny little balance checks throughout the routine. They're not major, but they do add up. For the dismount, round off that handspring, full twist, and a hop on the landing. No major deductions, just little ones that are going to add up. This is a nice move, a back handspring with a quarter turn to a handstand into a back hip circle around the beam.
Tracy Wilson, 5 feet 4 inches tall from North Vancouver, gets a 9.7. Coming up, more gymnastics from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. John Neighbor with Kathy Johnson alongside, getting ready for more gymnastics competition in the SEC. Let's go over to the floor exercise where Christina Rodas from Georgia is getting ready to represent her team. Here she comes.
Chris played a very important role last year as Georgia won that national championship in front of their home crowd. Her best mark on this event is a 9.55. One thing that collegiate gymnasts really try and do is get the audience behind them by their choice of music and their choice of moves. Nice pass.
Beautiful double back.
Tumbled right through to a double back. One thing about Georgia, they don't hold back in terms of difficulty. They've always said it. They're going to keep the routine up in terms of the level of difficulty. And hopefully as the season goes by, they get more and more consistent with it. Round up a handspring to another double back. Most of the gymnasts aren't even doing one double back in the routine on some of the other teams. Georgia and Alabama both incorporate a lot of double backs and, in fact, full twisting double backs into the routine.
Christina Rodas, a sophomore from Fullerton, California, hopes for a career in broadcasting at some point.
And here her teammates cheering for her in the background. Does a front with a half back handspring out. A little bit weak for her last pass, considering her first two passes were double back. And another nice routine for Georgia.
Christina Rodas, her friends call her Chris. One of the more entertaining athletes from the Bulldogs. And that sets the table nicely for the final performer from Georgia on this exercise.
Her first tumbling run, she does a front through to a double back. Nice height on the front, tumbles smoothly right into the next part. Good height. And most importantly, a perfect landing. Here's her second tumbling pass. She does another double back. You don't get a deduction as long as the pass is different. She did a front through on the first pass and a plain round up a handspring double back for the second, so there's no deduction for a repetition.
Official score for Chris Rodas in the floor exercise, 9.65 points. And the final athlete from Georgia on the floor, Corrine Wright. One of the big team leaders. Saw her earlier.
Again, she won the all-around last year at the NCAAs and also tied for first on this event with a 9.9, which is a school record. She has tremendous tumbling ability. So much power. Opens with a double layout. You can't do it any better than that. It was first made popular by Mary Lou Retton in the '84 Olympic Games. And Corinne did it just as well.
Got a little bit of a smile on her face now. I think she feels this is going to be a good routine for her.
A whip back due to a layout. And I have a feeling as the season progresses, and hopefully by nationals, that's going to go all the way through to a double back as well. The crowds like that. They like the popular music, the popular dance movement. Preparing for her last tumbling run. Looks like she's gathering steam for another double back. Yes, tuck double. Oh, she put her hands down. That's a judgment call, anywhere from 2 to 3, sometimes 4, but it's probably a 2 or 3/10 deduction, putting her hands down.
Well, that final landing notwithstanding, the Georgia Bulldogs seemed very pleased with that performance.
Well, this is the time in the season that you've got to go ahead and try, not necessarily the new skills, but your harder skills, because you've got to get the bugs out before nationals.
Take a look at that first tumbling run one more time.
This is absolutely beautiful. She has so much lift off the floor. Arms go right up here, and look at the rotation. Perfect laid out position.
And then her second tumbling run, she didn't do the double at the end, but she thinks she might be able to towards the end of the season.
She does a whip back just through to a layout, but she has so much difficulty in the rest of her routine, she doesn't need it at this point. But in order to be competitive at the Nationals, she's going to need it.
So her second tumbling was a little bit slower than her first, and this is her final tumble.
This is just a sign of being early in the season. They're all a little bit tired, competing every single weekend. Just a little out of steam here. She had plenty of height, just not quite enough rotation. Comes in a little short here.
9.45, the official score for Corrine Wright. During the second rotation, you can see Alabama continues to extend their lead over Georgia and Florida. So the running totals at this point, Alabama 96.45 points, Georgia 94.65, and Florida way back at 92 and change. Let's go now to the vaulting area, where Georgia's Heather Stepp is preparing for her second vault. She got a 9.15 on her first, and needless to say, she's trying to improve.
She fell on the first attempt, but she's doing a very difficult vault, a pike, full kissing Tsukahara. Now you can see her direction was off. That will be the major deduction on that vault. But it's such a difficult vault, I'm sure they'll take that into consideration. From this angle, you can really see the directional error. Good push-off here. Nice height. Legs just a tiny bit apart, but right here she has to hop off to the side.
Heather Stepp, the freshman from Sterling Heights, gets a 9.5, and they'll take that score for her vault. Next up for Alabama, Gina Bastille. Gina is a 5'3" sophomore from Whippany, New Jersey.
She has really done an excellent job for Alabama, particularly on this event.
Now, is there added pressure on her now since a couple of her teammates before her slipped and fell?
Yes, there definitely is. You're in a position where you know you're already counting a fall and a major break. You can't afford to miss at this point, and it is a lot of pressure. But hopefully they designed their lineup so the people at the end of the lineup can handle that kind of pressure. Nice angle for this skill. Round off, layout, step out. One of the most difficult skills done on beam today, and by far in this competition.
Gina Basile says that in competing for college, a group effort, and finds herself not so easily intimidated. She relies on the emotional strength of her teammates.
It's one of the things that most of these girls like best about competing in college. When they competed in the elite program or the USGF level, it was all individual, and there was so much pressure on themselves. Now they know there's others that count on them, but there's always somebody there in case they make a mistake to help pick them back up.
A very important routine was necessary for the Bama Tide to do a nice, flawless routine all the way through. And that sets the stage rather nicely for their final performance still to come.
This is a good chance for them to practice the pressure they're going to feel at Nationals, especially when Georgia or whoever they're competing against is on a high-scoring event and they're on the balance beam. They really don't want to lose points here. Take a look at the dismount. So everybody will tell you it's not over till it's over. You've got to concentrate all the way through to the end. She does a round off with a full twist. Just a tiny, tiny little hop at the end.
Gina Basile, her beam score 9.55. Jeannie Foster climbing to the beam for her performance. The last athlete from Alabama on this apparatus.
Sarah said if she had to say what Judy's weakest event was, it would be balance beam, because they needed to contain her energy. One area where being psyched up too much, having too much adrenaline is not good for you. Beautiful leap pass. The name of the game at Nationals is going to be consistency. Both these teams that we're seeing in the lead now have the difficulty. It's just going to be who hits on that particular day.
Alabama can usually be more consistent than their rivals.
She backhands it to a layout, step out, and another great save. They'll remember this team performance. As a team, they've had several good saves here. So many people don't realize how crucial a tenth of a point can be. There have been many Olympic championships lost by less than a tenth of a point. So you fight for everything you can. Tuck back somersault. Perfect landing.
She's getting ready for the dismount.
And she's doing the most difficult dismount done on beam here. Round off, double back. Boy, was that high. Excellent height from the beam and a perfect landing.
And it was delightful to watch the Bama teammates rushing from the sidelines to surround her with hugs. Jeannie Foster, a young freshman who is reuniting the Bama Tide in a very strong effort to position themselves for the national championship.
This is a sign of a good team and particularly a good competitor. Watch how she saves this. She knows she doesn't want to give up another fall for the team. Now here we can see where there's some problems. The back handspring, she's fine. So right there you can see how her body turns to the side. The second leg coming over bends, and that just throws her a little bit off to the side. And this was the best part of the routine. It's gorgeous. Round off. Perfect position in the air. The height finishes the second somersault above the level of the beam.
And the judges seem to agree, a 9.7 on that performance. Looks like Jeannie was hoping for a little bit better still. One of the reasons collegiate gymnastics is improving so rapidly is the influx of elite gymnasts to the college ranks. And most of them are finding that the fun has come back to the sport because of the rediscovering of the joy of athletic competition, due in part to the support provided by their teammates.
I mean, growing up with it, I've learned self-discipline, you know, where I want, like, setting goals and achieving them, and just a lot of stuff is just mental learning. I mean, all the stuff that I've learned, I mean, controlling things and knowing what I want to do with my life, that'll help me farther than gymnastics.
You know, I'm proud to be a college gymnast right now, you know, because I mean, there's some college gymnasts that I think are just as good as the USGS gymnasts that are like 15 and 14 years old. And it's a completely different sport, actually, to me, I think, than what I was doing with elite gymnastics.
By far, I can easily say, even being just a freshman, that college gymnastics has been the most rewarding part of my career. And the fact that it's just begun inspires me to work harder and to set higher goals. I just feel that there's no way to go but up from here on.
It's more enjoyable at the college level because it's a lot showier than international competition. But I had a very enjoyable time in international meets.
Next on the vault, Corrine Wright.
There's a little bit of pressure here. She had a disastrous first vault for an 8-7. Doing a tough cuervo. She tried a pike one in her first vault. This is much better. Good height off the horse. Most impressively, though, she does the tuck in an open position here.
Now, this is an important score for her, not just in this event, but she's trying for the all-around, and she gets a 9.65 from the judges. The shortest Lady Gator is Melissa Kutcher at 4 feet 11. She's on the floor.
She opened with a front through to a pike double back, a very nice tumbling pass. Florida was off to a decent start, then they had a little problem with their fourth gymnast up, so they're hoping to drop that score to 8.6, and it looks like they're well on their way to dropping that. Lightning bobble right there. Little tumbling run. A high full twist. Nice combination. Pirouette. Needs a little more stretch body alignment.
majoring in journalism.
Looking for a solid tumbling run so they can drop that 8.6. She ends with a tuck double back, a good landing. Obviously, they'll be dropping the 8.6. This will really help Florida.
And a nice dramatic finish on that. Melissa Kutcher, a sophomore studying journalism. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot from her. That was an interesting first pass she made with the double back.
It was a beautiful first pass. The one thing I'm disappointed, as you heard, she finished the routine. You could hear one person clapping in the background. That's the difficulty in college gymnastics competing in other people's schools. And quite frankly, I think it's rude. It's unfortunate, and it's very difficult for them, but they have to deal with it.
Well, the judges didn't think she did poorly at all. A 9.5 for Melissa Kutcher. Florida coach Ernie Weaver hoping she's saved the best for last. Pam Titus on the floor exercise.
Well, Pam last year tied with her teammate Melissa Miller for the Southeastern Conference Championship on this event. Front through to a tuck double back way up in the air. Good height there. Nice combination of jump. Top 20 at this point in the floor exercise. Middle tumbling run, another high tuck double back. I can't see from this angle. It almost looks like she might have stepped out of bounds. Nice double turn. Again, the judges are looking for the more difficult moves to give them the bonus point. Get those by doing the double back. Little stumble there, slight deduction. And originality and value and connection is important in getting that bonus point. And with the double twist, a little low on the landing, but pulls it out.
Pam Titus, the junior from Holbrook, New York, public relations major.
Plenty of difficulty in this routine. She opened, her first two passes were double back and ended with a double full. Looking at the last pass here. She needs to clean up the form a little bit and try and get a little more height on that last pass.
And Florida did save the best for last. Pam Titus getting a 9.55 in the floor exercise. Georgia's fifth athlete in this rotation, Sandy Roulette.
Sandy's doing a Sukahara in laid out position, valued at 9.7. Nice position in the air. The problem on that ball was in the pre-flight, flight form deductions, and of course the landing. She piped down and had a little stutter step there at the landing. You can see here, legs apart, good position in the air, but just an awkward landing there, which will be a deduction.
Judges agree. Sandy Roulette's score on the vault, 9.45. Last up, Georgia's best hope in the vault, Jennifer Carbone.
Scored a 9.45 on her first vault. She repeated the vault. This was a much better vault. She still had a hop on the landing, but the height was very, very good, and only minor, very slight form deductions in the air. Here you can see the tremendous push. She gets off the horse, good position in the air. And there's that deduction, the hop on the landing.
So the final performer in this rotation, Jennifer Carbone, a 9.50 on the vault. And so that brings the running score with 3 of the 4 rotations complete. Alabama leading 143.65, followed by Georgia 142.25, and Florida 139.45. So we're 3/4 of the way through the competition so far, and Alabama gave up a little bit of their lead on that third round. What do you think is standing out in your mind as far as the first 3/4 of this event?
Well, Alabama came on like gangbusters on their second rotation, the uneven bars, which is typically their best event. A lot of high scores there. But then they opened up the door just a little bit on the balance beam, which is where they've had their problems before in their national bid last year. So it was good practice for them to feel that kind of pressure. Georgia just plugged along, mid-nines, all the way through the second and third rotation, so they closed the gap just a little bit.
Now, Georgia gaining almost, or Alabama giving up almost 1/4 of their lead in that third rotation. As we go into the fourth rotation, Alabama on the floor, Georgia on the bars. Do you think the Dogs can catch them?
I think it's going to be a very slim shot, but you never know in gymnastics. Anything can happen. Alabama is going to a very strong event for them. They have terrific floor exercise routines there. They would almost really have to blow it. But on the uneven bars, Georgia has the potential to score high there. So I think we still have an exciting rotation ahead of us.
Standing on the fringe of the rug, a woman we've seen a great deal of, Sherry Way, for Alabama in the floor exercise.
Sherry's always one of my favorite gymnasts on this event. Beautiful dance. Really connects with her audience. Great facial expression. High double back. A little bit low on the landing, but she just nailed it.
It's got to help her momentum. You can hear the crowd.
The one thing that the crowd knows when there's a mistake, if they stumble out of a tumbling run, but boy, when they just stick the landing.
Don't see this much. Tumbling run not in the diagonal.
Full twist to a straddle jump. Nice to see when it looks like they're having some fun out there. Handstand pirouette. I like her extension. She has nice flexibility. It just makes everything look so much nicer when it's just clean. Double twist. All her tumbling's been a little bit low, but those are just minor deductions. The rest is so pretty. And another fine Alabama floor routine.
Does it influence the judges when you're surrounded by your teammates who are full of congratulations?
The judges already have their heads down, looking at their score sheets and trying to come up with a score. I don't even think they notice that. The one thing they do hear, though, is the crowd.
Take a look at that starting tumbling run. Here she goes. Sherry Way.
I can tell this is a little bit early in the season for her, because normally her tumbling is much higher. But as I said, just minor deduction here. Could have been a little higher in the air. She has to pull it around right here, but manages to land perfectly.
Sherry Way's score from the judges. Next up for Georgia, Heather Stepp, a freshman from Sterling Heights, Michigan. She's also a contender in the individual all-around contest.
Georgia's sitting pretty at this point. They're counting 2 9.7s and a 9.75, dropping a 9.65. Giant with a full pirouette over the top. Reverse hex. A little short on that rotation. You could see she mixed the high bar as she went over, and also slow on the momentum right there on the low bar. Those will be deductions. Gaining the momentum, giant swing to a double back flyaway. She ended up okay, but she had problems in the middle part of the routine. First on the big release move, the reverse hex. You see right here, she just nicks the bar with her lower back as she goes over.
And the judges must have seen it too, Kathy. They score 9.5 for Heather Stepp. That's probably the score that will be dropped for the Lady Gators. More action on the floor, off the vault, and the uneven parallel bars when we return right after this. John Neighbor with Kathy Johnson alongside, getting ready for more gymnastics competition in the SEC. Kim Masters is next up, though. Fourth athlete in the rotation on the floor exercise.
Kim enrolled at the University of Alabama in the spring of 1988 after deciding to call it quits in the elite competition. She was trying for a berth on the world championship team and then finally the 88 Olympic team, but decided it just wasn't for her. She loves college gymnastics now.
Back as an elite athlete, she used to say she would laugh at the collegiate athletes she would see.
Well, years ago, if you're talking going back 10 years, collegiate gymnastics was so far removed from the elite gymnastics. There was a big demarcation. Now it's much closer. The gymnasts in college are much better than they used to be. Much better.
Thanks to the likes of her.
What's nice to see is these gymnasts go to college, get an education, have a social life, and in many instances still get better.
Little break dancing.
Resting up for her final run. Full twist. As I mentioned earlier, Kim is coming back from a sore ankle. So she's not in full shape right now. Her coach said she's probably 2 weeks away from really being 100%. That's why she watered down a little bit. She only did a full twist at the end of her routine. She had enough difficulty early on in the routine to merit a nice score.
Kim Masters, a junior at 5 feet 2 inches tall out of Blue Springs, Ohio.
So one thing I'm most impressed with the Alabama gymnasts is the physical shape they're in. They're probably in better shape than any other collegiate team in the nation. Taking a look at her last run, the full twist, again, not as difficult as it should be, but I'm sure later in the season they'll add more and more difficulty.
Kim Masters gets a 9.6 from the judges. While Alabama was on the floor exercise, the Lady Gators were working in the vaulting competition, and this was Pam Titus's second attempt after getting a 9.1 on her first.
She does a layout super hard, nice height, good distance, a little off to the side, but it was good enough for a 9.45.
So that brings us up to the final performer for the Lady Bulldogs, Corrine Wright, also their greatest hope for individual all-around honors.
Corrine earned All-America status on this event last year. Giant full pirouette, the giant half pirouette, front giant. Good work so far. A little sloppy every now and then with feet, but overall, good bar routine. Open cut, double flyaway. Nice difficulty, good swing. Should score very, very well.
Nice finish for Corrine Wright. And that's the final performance to the Lady Bulldogs. We'll take a look at what the judges say, and they look like it's a 9.8, 9.8, the official score. Coming up, more gymnastics from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You're looking at the hope, the future hope of Alabama gymnastics, Dee Dee Foster. She's one of their top performers on all the apparatus, and now she's getting ready to make her mark not only for her team score, but also the all-around, individual all-around score.
Keep in mind, she's coming back from a complete year off, so she can only get better. High double back, perfect landing. Watch the energy in this routine. One of the most energetic, I've known her since she was a kid. I almost said kid. One of the most energetic people I've ever known. Beautiful tumbling pass. Tumbled right through to a high double back.
She's on the move now, and her teammates are clapping and dancing along.
And here's that move move she did for so long. It's a move she broke her wrist on in Japan. And she's now put it back in her routine. She does it very well. She punch 1 1/4 to the throne drop. Going for her third double back of the routine. This is what it takes for a national title. Good job. Very nice routine with lots and lots of difficulty.
Nice stylized finish.
Really amazing about Dee Dee is the height she gets off the floor on her tumbling passes.
She had great spirit throughout that routine. A lot of...
She always has. As far back as I can remember, even as a junior, she had so much charisma. Look at the lift here. Extension on the first somersault. Nice pike position. And a perfect landing. You can't ask for more than that. The middle tumbling run. To make it different from the other two, she does a front before the tumbling pass. And another high tuck double back.
Look at the team behind her. See them all clapping and cheering?
Almost stepped out of bounds there, but just managed to stay in. And the last tumbling run, a very impressive double back. It's hard to do at the end of your routine. It's like running a half-mile race and then trying to do a double back at the end.
A remarkable performance for Dee Dee Foster, and yet even before this event, the coaches felt that she would not be the best floor exercise. Dee Dee Foster's performance on the floor exercise, 9.75. The responsibility to bring home the big score is going to rest on this woman, Allie Blumberg. Allie, short for Allison. Interesting story. She came into the school with some learning disability, a problem with dyslexia, which she seemed to have overcome, and now the charisma is on the floor. This woman can perform to the crowd.
What's nice about the college atmosphere to have the support of the coaches, the support of the teammates, not only in gymnastics, but in the classroom, in their social life. There's a front through, to a tuck double back, off to a great start. Allie needs an 8.65 on this event for Alabama to win the competition.
She's almost earned that many points already. Artistic and athletic skills combined.
That's what gymnastics is all about.
The final year, a senior at Alabama.
Another tuck double back. Good landing. And her team decided for her.
Even the coaches are smirking from the sideline.
And that's the Shushanova. Named after Elena Shushanova, 1988 Olympic champion from the Soviet Union. What a finish.
Well, she'll certainly get an 8.65 from the judges. And now we'll virtually lock up the victory for Alabama in this competition. Wiping the tears away from their eyes, you can tell. But the Lady Crimson know they've won this three-way dual meet.
And here was the icing on the cake. All she needed was an 8.65. And she definitely rose well above the occasion. Nice height on the tumbling
About
pass.
8 feet over the occasion from where we sat.
Another double back. So important. Trying to get that difficulty level up. You can really tell she's pulling everything out to make this tumbling pass. Just pulls it around and takes no steps.
That completes our competition for this evening. All 4 rotations are now.
That's the result of 4 years of loyalty developed here at the University of Alabama. Allison, congratulated by rivals and friends alike. 9.6 from the judges on that routine, and that guarantees the victory for the Lady Crimson. So you see the final score there on your screen as all athletes have completed their 4 rotations. Alabama wins 191.75 points. Georgia rallying a bit, 190.85. Then Florida, 185 and change. Jeannie Foster, the young freshman from Alabama, wins the individual all-around point title. With 38.90 points, she outdistanced Corrine Wright for the victory here. Jeannie Foster, the woman full of energy and spunk, talent in all 4 apparatus. The all-around outstanding performer of this contest.
Dee, you've won every collegiate competition you've been in, tied for first or won every event tonight and the all-around. How do you like collegiate competition so far?
I love it. By far, it is the highlight of my career. I'm very, very happy that I decided to do college gymnastics.
Are there any areas that you really want to work on between now and nationals that you think you can improve on?
Definitely, I want to get that pike vault stuck. I need to get rid of the wobbles on beam and maybe upgrade my floor routine a little bit.
Well, what did this victory mean to you personally and to the Alabama's team?
I think team-wise, this is a major, major step so far in the year. I think that this is a big obstacle we needed to get over, and we did it, and I'm very, very pleased.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, Dee Dee. And Sarah, the coach of the Alabama team, we'll start with that last question to Dee Dee. What did this victory mean to the Alabama team?
Well, I think most important, we were looking at this meet as a gauge of, are we competitive right now? Are we one of the teams that can possibly win the national championship? And I think anytime you can stay on the floor with the University of Georgia, I think you know that later on you're going to be in the hunt for the title. And I think that's, from a coaching perspective, that's more what I wanted to know tonight. Are we prepared enough?
I'm very impressed with the physical conditioning of your team. Is that one of the keys to your success?
I think so. Our philosophy here has always been that you can keep your weight down and stay in great physical shape, that the risk for injury is less. And I think in college gymnastics, the teams that can make it to the end are the ones that are going to be at the top. And I just feel like anything I can do to make my athletes more safe is probably number 1 on my priority.
Okay, great. Thank you. Congratulations to both of you. All right, back to you.
Thank you, Kathy, and of course, congratulations to Dee Dee and the Crimson Tide. Let's take a look at an interesting graphic that shows a little bit about what went on in the competition as we compare apparatus against apparatus. Remember that the teams are competing on different equipment at all times, but when we compare the vault scores across the board, you see that Alabama against Georgia was slightly ahead in the vault, was slightly ahead in the bar, was slightly ahead in the beam, and appeared to be dominant on the floor exercise. And, Kathy, this has to be a little bit different than how they did at the national championships last year.
It's really important to take note of that statistic because last year at nationals, although Alabama was better than Georgia on 2 events, vault and uneven bars, they were behind on floor exercise and well behind the mark on the balance beam, and that's what cost them the national championship and gave it to Georgia.
So the Tide's improving where they need improvement. In your opinion,